Be me, Century E, social media manager. Married for 6 years to husband Nathan, who was 33 and worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, had strong feminist beliefs about financial equality in marriage, didn't want to be dependent on man or stuck in traditional gender roles, believed both partners should be equally financially successful and independent, not one partner settling for mediocre income. Nathan had been an accountant for 8 years, making a decent middle-class salary of $75, ling ling ling, but seemed content at that level. Never talked about pursuing a partnership track or starting his own practice or any ambitious financial goals beyond comfortable living. Meanwhile, I'd built a successful social media consulting business, growing from $40, 000 to $95, 000 annually through hustle and ambition. Worked constantly building a client base, networking extensively, always thinking about scaling business to 6 figures and beyond. Started feeling resentful that Nathan seemed comfortable with his steady accountant salary while I kept pushing for more income. Felt like I was carrying the financial ambition for both of us. He was coasting while I was constantly striving for wealth. Had several conversations with Nathan about his lack of financial drive and ambition over the past year of our marriage. He'd say he made a good salary. We were comfortable, didn't need more money, and valued work-life balance over wealth accumulation. This frustrated me deeply. Felt like he wasn't reaching his potential or thinking about our financial future seriously. Posted on feminist forums about feeling resentful toward unambitious husbands who seemed content with mediocrity and middle-class lifestyle. Got responses from other women who related to being more financially driven and ambitious than their male partners. One woman suggested withholding intimacy until the husband showed more financial ambition and drive for wealth accumulation. She said, "If he's not working toward wealth, he's not preparing for your future together. Doesn't deserve full partnership benefits." This resonated strongly with me. Felt like Nathan was getting all the benefits of marriage while not securing our financial future. Had serious conversation with Nathan about my frustrations with his financial complacency and lack of wealth-building mindset. Told him I needed him to be more ambitious about building wealth and securing our financial independence long-term. He said we had a good combined income, were saving reasonably, had retirement accounts, and didn't understand what the problem was. I said the problem was he was satisfied with being middle class when we should be working toward real wealth and financial freedom. He looked confused and asked what specifically I wanted him to do differently about his career and income. I said I wanted him to pursue partnership at his firm, or start his own practice, or find a way to significantly increase his income. He said partnership required 70-plus-hour weeks for years and massive stress. Starting practice required huge financial risk. I said then he needed to find some way to build wealth, because I couldn't be the only one thinking about our financial future. Got more frustrated over following months as Nathan continued in the same accountant role without pursuing wealth building opportunities. Posted in Feminist group about the situation. And one woman suggested making intimacy contingent on serious wealth building efforts. She said men need concrete consequences. If a comfortable middle-class life doesn't motivate him, maybe losing intimacy will. This felt extreme. But I was desperate to motivate Nathan to think bigger about our financial future and wealth potential. Had another conversation with Nathan, telling him our intimacy life would be on hold until he took serious steps toward building wealth. He looked absolutely stunned and asked if I was seriously withholding sex to force him to pursue wealth he didn't care about. I said I was setting boundaries about what I needed in partnership. Someone who shared my financial ambitions and wealth goals. He said this felt like I was making our marriage transactional based on his income rather than about love and partnership. I said love and partnership included planning for a financial future. Couldn't have real partnership with someone who wasn't building wealth. He was quiet for a very long time. then said he needed space to think about what this ultimatum meant for our marriage. Following weeks were tense and cold. Nathan stayed in the guest room, and we barely communicated beyond necessary logistics. He started working noticeably longer hours, and having mysterious meetings he mentioned vaguely without much detail. Part of me felt satisfied that Boundary was motivating him to finally take wealth building seriously after years of complacency. 2 months into withholding intimacy, Nathan told me he'd been working on something significant regarding our financial situation. Said he needed to have a serious conversation with me about money, our marriage, and some things I didn't know about him. Felt mix of excitement and vindication. Assumed he'd found a wealth-building opportunity, and was ready to meet my financial standards. We sat down and he said, "I need to tell you something I've kept private throughout our entire marriage, for various reasons. When we met 6 years ago, I told you I was an accountant making $65. Ling, ling, ling. Which was true, but wasn't a complete picture. I actually come from a wealthy family. My grandfather left me a trust fund worth $3. $2 million that I've had access to since age 25. Felt shock wash over me. This made no sense with everything I knew about Nathan and his lifestyle choices. I said, "What are you talking about? We live in a modest house. You drive a 10-year-old car. We budget carefully every month." He said yes because I never wanted money to define me or attract people who only cared about wealth. Not about me as a person. I've lived on my accountant's salary entirely. Trust fund has just been growing, invested in index funds gaining value. You're telling me you've had over $3 million this whole time while I've been stressing about building our wealth. He said, "Yes, I've had it, but I wanted marriage based on love and partnership, not based on my family money. Wanted to know you loved me for me, not for financial security I could provide through inherited wealth." I felt betrayed and furious. Said you let me work myself to exhaustion building business while you had millions sitting there. He said you love your business. You built it because you're passionate about it, not because we needed money desperately. I said you watched me stress about money and lecture you about financial ambition when you were secretly wealthy the whole time. He said, "I watched you reveal that money and wealth were more important to you than partnership and love. That you'd withhold intimacy and affection to force me to pursue wealth I didn't need or want. This whole experience showed me your love was conditional on financial status, not based on who I actually am." I said, "This is completely unfair. You lied to me about our financial situation for our entire 6-year marriage." He said, "I didn't lie. I just didn't mention money that I wasn't using and didn't define my identity or worth. But your ultimatum about intimacy until wealth forced me to reveal it because I realized this marriage isn't working." Asked what he meant. Marriage isn't working. Now I know about money. We could move forward and plan a proper lifestyle. He said that's exactly the problem. You just learned I have $3, $2 million, and immediately started planning how to spend it. You're not asking why I kept it private or trying to understand my values about money and identity. You're just excited about the access to wealth you've been demanding I pursue. Proves my concerns were valid." I said, "Of course. I'm thinking about what we can do with that money. It changes everything about our financial future." He said, "It changes nothing about who I am or what I value, but it changes everything about how you see me. For 2 months, you've withheld intimacy demanding I build wealth. Now you know I have wealth, and you're ready to reconnect. That shows me your intimacy and love were based on money, not on me. Exactly what I feared when I kept the fund private. Started crying and said I didn't mean it like that. I just wanted us to be financially secure and ambitious together." He said we were already financially secure on our combined incomes with good savings and retirement planning. You wanted wealth and status, and you were willing to withhold love until I provided that regardless of what I wanted. Now I've revealed I have wealth, and you're ready to resume intimacy. Proves it was always conditional on financial status. Said desperately that this wasn't fair. He deceived me about our financial situation throughout the entire marriage. He said, I kept private money private. You made love conditional on wealth. We're not the same. And now I'm going to use some of that private money to hire a divorce lawyer and end this conditional marriage. Felt panic and shock. Said, You're divorcing me after I just found out you've been secretly wealthy, the entire marriage. He said, I'm divorcing you because your ultimatum about intimacy revealed that your love is conditional on wealth. Not genuine. The money was tested. I didn't know I was running. But you failed by making love contingent on financial status. I'll be filing for divorce this week. I've already consulted a lawyer and have an apartment lined up to move to. Begged him to reconsider. Said I'd been wrong about withholding intimacy, and we could start fresh now that I knew the truth. He said the problem isn't just withholding intimacy, it's that you only want to start fresh now that you know I have money. You were ready to leave marriage or stay miserable until I built wealth. Now you know wealth exists. You're suddenly interested. That proves money was always conditioned for your love and partnership. I don't want marriage based on that foundation. Following week, Nathan moved out to the apartment he'd secured and filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences about values. Sat alone feeling devastated and confused about how my boundary about wealth had exposed his secret money and ended marriage. Posted in Feminist forum about what happened, expecting support for being deceived about his financial situation for years. Got extremely mixed responses that challenged my entire perspective on the situation, and my ultimatum about intimacy. Several women said, Nathan had every right to keep inheritance private, and my ultimatum proved his fears about money were valid. One commented, If you loved him, you wouldn't have cared about wealth. Your ultimatum revealed you cared more about money than him. Another said he tested whether you loved him or his financial potential. And you failed by demanding wealth before intimacy. But other feminists defended me, saying he'd lied by omission and denied me information about our true financial situation. One said you had the right to know about major assets that affected your marital finances and future planning. Another said he manipulated the situation by hiding wealth, then judging you for caring about finances. That's controlling behavior. This division in responses made me question whether I'd been right to demand wealth or whether Nathan's secret was justified. Talked to my therapist about divorce and the revelation about Nathan's hidden wealth that I'd never known about. She asked me to describe how I felt when Nathan revealed he had $2 million trust funds throughout the marriage. I said initially, I was shocked, then excited about financial possibilities, then betrayed that he'd hidden it for 6 years. She asked me to notice the order of those feelings. Excitement about money came before feeling betrayed about deception. I was quiet, realizing that my immediate excitement about wealth had probably confirmed Nathan's worst fears about my priorities. She said, It sounds like Nathan was testing whether you loved him for who he was or for financial security he could provide. And your ultimatum about intimacy until wealth followed by excitement about his money suggested money was the priority. I said, But I had the right to know about our true financial situation. He deceived me by hiding a major asset. She said he kept private inheritance private, which some people do to ensure relationships aren't based on money. Your ultimatum gave him reason to reveal it, but also confirmed his fears that your love was conditional on wealth. This was a painful realization that my focus on money had validated Nathan's decision to hide wealth from me. Started thinking back over 6 years of marriage and all my complaints about his lack of financial ambition. Had I made him feel like he wasn't enough because he was content with a middle-class accountant lifestyle? Had I prioritized wealth and status over his happiness and what he valued in life beyond money? Had I failed to appreciate that he'd chosen to live modestly despite having access to millions of dollars? Called Nathan a few days later, hoping to process everything with more understanding of his perspective finally. He said he appreciated the call. but he was firm in decision to divorce and move forward with his life. I said I realized my reaction to learning about money had probably confirmed your fears about my priorities. He said yes. Your immediate excitement about wealth rather than about understanding why I kept it private was telling. You didn't ask about my values around money or why privacy was important, just started planning how to use it. That confirmed you were more interested in financial status than in who I actually am as a person beyond wealth. I said I was wrong to make intimacy conditional on wealth and wrong to immediately focus on money when you revealed it. He said those weren't isolated mistakes. They were revealing your fundamental values and priorities in marriage. You spent a year complaining about my lack of financial ambition when I was actually already financially secure. You withheld intimacy to force wealth building when I already had wealth. Just not wealth I was willing to use to prove worth. Asked if there was any way to rebuild now that I understood why he'd kept the fund private and what my ultimatum revealed. He said, I don't think so because the fundamental issue is you value wealth and status more than partnership and contentment. I value living modestly based on earned income regardless of inherited wealth. Those are incompatible life philosophies. You want to live a wealthy lifestyle based on my family money? I want to live an earned lifestyle based on my actual work. That's not just a disagreement about money, it's a disagreement about the meaning and purpose of life and marriage. This conversation made clear that divorce was truly happening, and I needed to accept my role in destroying marriage. Divorce was finalized 6 months later. Nathan remained in a modest apartment and kept working as an accountant despite his millions. Mutual friends told me he was dating someone who didn't know about trust funds. Repeating the same pattern of privacy, felt complex emotions about this, understood his reasoning, but also felt it was deceptive to hide major financial information year after divorce. I reflected on what had happened and what I'd learned about priorities and conditional love. Posted article about experience titled, I demanded wealth and lost everything when I got it. Detailed how I'd withheld intimacy until Nathan built wealth. How he'd revealed a secret trust fund. How excitement revealed priorities. And how my reaction to his wealth proved his fears that my love was conditional on financial status, not genuine partnership. Article went viral with over 50,000 reads and passionate responses from all perspectives on both sides. Many people sympathized with Nathan, saying I'd revealed exactly what he'd feared by demanding wealth before intimacy. One commenter said, he tested you by living modestly despite wealth, and you failed by making love conditional on money. Another said, your immediate excitement about money, rather than understanding his values, proved you cared about wrong things. But many women defended me, saying, Nathan's deception about finances was manipulative regardless of his reasoning. One commented, he had no right to hide a major marital asset, then judge you for caring about financial security. Another commented this was financial abuse through withholding information about resources that affected your planning. These divided responses showed how complex the situation was, with legitimate points on both sides of the issue. Started doing consulting work, helping couples navigate financial transparency and values alignment in relationships. Main message was that both financial privacy and financial partnership had valid justifications that needed discussion. That Nathan's privacy about inheritance and my demands about wealth were both rooted in valid but incompatible values. First consulting client was a couple whose wife had an inheritance she'd kept private throughout 5-year marriage. Husband had recently discovered it and felt betrayed that she'd hidden significant wealth while they budgeted carefully. I shared my story from Nathan's wife's perspective about demanding wealth and learning about secret money. They were able to discuss their different values about money, privacy, and partnership without my mistake of demanding first 2 years after divorce. Ran into Nathan at a mutual friend's wedding. First time seeing him since divorce finalized, he looked content and relaxed. Was he with a girlfriend who seemed completely unaware of his family wealth? We talked briefly, and I asked if he'd ever told girlfriend about the trust fund or was keeping it private again. He said he hadn't told her yet and might not for a long time. Want a relationship based on who he was, not his money? I said I understood his reasoning now, even though I disagreed about the right to privacy versus partnership transparency. He said he learned from our marriage that sharing financial information didn't guarantee shared values about money, that I'd known his salary but not his wealth, and still made love conditional on money, so transparency wasn't the issue. This conversation helped me understand that problem hadn't been his privacy, but my conditional love based on status. 3 years after divorce, published a book about experience titled When Love Becomes Conditional Wealth. Detailed complete story from demanding Nathan build wealth to his revelation about trust fund to divorce included perspectives from both sides about financial privacy versus transparency in marriage and partnership, and lessons about how making love conditional on financial status destroys the foundation of genuine partnership. Book resonated with people on both sides of the privacy versus transparency debate in relationships. One reviewer wrote, "This shows the dangers of measuring love and partnership by financial metrics rather than values." Another wrote, "Author's honest accounting of mistakes provides warning about conditional love and material priorities." Started speaking at relationship conferences about financial values, alignment, and avoiding conditional partnerships. Main message was that I'd made love conditional on wealth, while Nathan had made transparency conditional on unconditional love, that both approaches had validity but were fundamentally incompatible, leading inevitably to marriage failure. One conference attendee said she'd been planning a similar ultimatum with husband about increasing income. My story helped her realize she needed to examine whether she loved husband or loved potential financial status. Another attendee said he'd kept inheritance private from wife for similar reasons to Nathan's privacy concerns. My story helped him understand that privacy created its own problems, even if fears about conditional love were valid. 4 years after divorce, Nathan got engaged to girlfriend who still didn't know about his trust fund wealth. Heard through mutual friends, he planned to tell her before the wedding, but wanted engagement based on love, not money. Felt genuinely happy he'd found someone, but worried about a pattern of deception even with good intentions. 5 years after divorce, reflected on complete journey from demanding wealth to discovering secret wealth to losing everything, realized my biggest mistake was making love conditional on financial achievement rather than based on partnership, that Nathan's biggest mistake was keeping financial information private, then judging me for caring about it when revealed, and that we'd both been right about our values, but wrong about compatibility with each other's fundamentally different priorities. Started mentoring women specifically about examining their priorities in relationships before making financial demands. One mentee said she'd been frustrated with boyfriend's modest income despite his career satisfaction and happiness. After our work together, she realized she valued status and wealth more than she valued him as a person. Made a decision to end the relationship so he could find someone who valued his contentment, not frustrated by it. Another mentee said she discovered boyfriend had family money he'd kept private and felt betrayed. Helped her understand his fears about conditional love while also validating her need for financial transparency. They were able to discuss values and reach a compromise about privacy versus partnership that worked for both. 6 years after divorce, ran into Nathan's sister at a charity event and asked how he was doing in marriage. She said he'd finally told wife about the trust fund before the wedding, and she'd reacted with curiosity about his values. Not excitement about money, that they lived modestly on combined salaries while the trust fund continued growing untouched. Exactly Nathan's preference. Wife apparently shared his values about earned lifestyle versus inherited wealth. They were very happy together. This confirmed that compatibility wasn't about transparency versus privacy, but about shared values regarding money and meaning. Current reflections 7 years after demanding wealth and being shocked when secret wealth funded divorce, learned that making love conditional on financial status reveals priorities that destroy the foundation of genuine partnership. That excitement about money, rather than curiosity about values, exposed that I'd cared more about wealth than about Nathan, that his secret wealth wasn't the problem. My conditional love based on wealth was a fundamental issue destroying marriage, that people have valid reasons for financial privacy even in marriage, though transparency also has valid justifications. Most importantly, that Nathan had been right, that my love was conditional and his secret wealth became a tool for freedom. That's what I learned from demanding wealth and being devastated when secret wealth was used to fund divorce from me. From thinking I deserved a wealthy partner to realizing I'd valued wealth over the actual person I'd married, from being excited about money to understanding that excitement revealed I'd failed a test I didn't know I was taking, that's my complete story about how demanding wealth revealed my priorities and destroyed marriage with a secretly wealthy man. 7 years after divorce, continued consulting work, helping couples navigate financial values and conditional relationship dynamics. Worked with over 60 couples where one partner had made love conditional on financial achievement or status. Common pattern was one partner measuring worth by income or wealth, while other partners valued contentment and balance. Most successful couples were ones who aligned on financial values before making demands or setting ultimatums about money. One couple I worked with had a wife demanding husband pursue a high-paying career despite his satisfaction with teaching. She'd been withholding affection until he showed more financial ambition. Exactly what I'd done with Nathan. After sharing my complete story, including how Nathan's secret wealth exposed my conditional love, she reconsidered, realized she valued financial status more than she valued her husband's happiness and authentic partnership. They ultimately divorced because she couldn't accept his values about money and life, meaning beyond wealth accumulation. But divorce happened with honesty about incompatible values rather than through ultimatums and conditional affection. 8 years after divorce, started teaching a course at university about financial dynamics and power in intimate relationships. Used my failed marriage as a case study about how financial demands can reveal fundamental incompatibility in values. Students analyzed Nathan's decision to hide wealth, my ultimatum about intimacy, and lessons about conditional love. Most insightful student analyses identified that both privacy and transparency had validity depending on underlying values. One student wrote, Nathan's privacy protected him from gold diggers, but also prevented genuine financial partnership. Another wrote, your demands about wealth revealed you measured love by money, which Nathan had feared all along. Several students related personally to either hiding financial information or being frustrated by their partner's financial choices. One wrote, my parents divorced over a similar issue. My mom wanted wealth. My dad wanted a simple life, living on less. Another wrote, I keep my family money private from partners because I fear they'll love money. Not me. Like your story, started speaking specifically at financial planning conferences about emotional dynamics of money and relationships. Main message was that financial compatibility required shared values about money's meaning, not just shared income levels. That Nathan and I had been incompatible because I valued wealth accumulation while he valued a modest lifestyle, and that his secret millions hadn't been the problem. My conditional love based on financial status was a core issue destroying us. One conference attendee approached saying she'd inherited wealth and kept it private from husband of 10 years. She feared he'd change how he saw her or their relationship if he knew about family money. I asked if she'd be willing to lose marriage to maintain privacy. She said she didn't know but feared his reaction. Shared that Nathan had lost me but gained clarity that his values were incompatible with mine through revelation. That privacy had cost him transparency but saved him from life with someone who loved his money more than him. She decided to tell husband about inheritance and let his reaction determine their compatibility going forward. Honestly, 9 years after divorce, published a research study on financial secrecy and conditional love in modern marriages. Surveyed 300 individuals who'd either hidden financial assets or made love conditional on partners' financial achievement, found that 65% of those who hid assets did so because they'd experienced or feared conditional treatment based on money, and 70% of those who made demands about wealth later regretted it after realizing they'd prioritized money over partnership. Research proved what I'd learned experientially, that both financial privacy and financial demands stemmed from valid fears. But both approaches often destroyed relationships by preventing genuine alignment on values about money and life. Meaning started developing a framework for couples to discuss financial values before reaching a point of secrecy or ultimatums. Framework focused on understanding what money meant to each person beyond just income or wealth accumulation numbers. First couples who used Framework reported better ability to navigate financial differences without destroying relationship foundations. One couple discovered the wife valued security through wealth, while the husband valued freedom through minimalism. Framework helped them find compromise where both needs were met without demands or secrecy destroying partnership. 10 years after divorce, ran into Nathan at an industry event. He had 2 young children now and seemed genuinely content. We talked briefly about his family and life. He said his wife shared his values about living modestly despite wealth, that they were raising kids with earned allowance and chores rather than giving them access to trust fund money, teaching them about work ethic and value of earning rather than inheriting. Exactly his philosophy about wealth. I said it sounded like he'd found the perfect match and values. Congratulated him on building life aligned with priorities. He said finding someone who shared values about money had been crucial after learning from our incompatibility, that he didn't regret keeping money private because it had revealed my true priorities through my conditional ultimatum. I said I didn't regret the ultimatum either, because it had revealed our incompatibility before wasting more years together. That I'd learned I valued wealth and achievement more than contentment, which meant I needed a different kind of partner. He said exactly. We both learned important truths about ourselves and what we needed from partnership through that experience. This conversation gave me peace about divorce, recognizing we both ended up where we belonged with aligned partners. Recently started dating an investment banker named Christopher, who shared my values about wealth building and financial ambition. We'd met at a networking event and immediately connected over a shared drive for financial success and status achievement. He was impressed by my business growth and financial goals. I was impressed by his career trajectory and wealth accumulation. This relationship felt completely different from marriage with Nathan because Christopher valued the same things I valued about money. We talked openly about financial goals, investment strategies, luxury purchases, and building wealth together actively. No pretense about being content with modest middle-class life, both driven toward high net worth and financial freedom. Realized this was the partnership I'd actually wanted all along. Someone who shared my values about money and achievement, that Nathan had been a wonderful person, but we'd been fundamentally incompatible on core values about wealth and life, meaning current reflection, 11 years after demanding wealth, and being shocked when secret wealth funded divorce from controlling marriage. Learned that making love conditional on financial status reveals fundamental values that determine relationship compatibility, that Nathan's secret wealth wasn't betrayal, but protection. And my excitement about money proved his protection was necessary, that people have different values about wealth and meaning. Neither right nor wrong, but must be compatible for partnership, that I value financial ambition and wealth accumulation, which requires partner who shares those values, not resents them. Most importantly, that Nathan had been right to divorce me because my conditional love based on wealth showed incompatibility clearly, that his secret millions became tool for freedom from marriage with someone who loved idea of wealth more than actual person. That's everything I learned from demanding wealth, and discovering secret wealth exposed my priorities, destroying partnership. From thinking Nathan deceived me, to understanding his privacy protected him from my conditional love based on money.